doing this, but their website.
This meeting is being recorded.
Their website does a really good job explaining why, how to create missing middle housing and what it is. Now, and that's how I learned about it. Now, I neither endorse or impose it right now. I'm still learning about it, but it's important for area businesses that we provide a local labor supply, and so that they can open their businesses, so that Englewood can collect tax revenue in order to pay for crime prevention and fix the infrastructure that people were complaining about last night. But it is equally important that homeowners be able to enjoy the south-facing sunshine as long as they own their home, and not have to live in the darkened ice-filled spaces that we're talking about when we talk about solar access. And that's why I talked about solar access a long time ago also. So after last night's public forum, you might find, as community development might find the need to bring back the setbacks in this proposal, or maybe a solution would be to just scrap the whole thing and expand the size of ADUs to accommodate the percentage of property space, or let's grow it with ADUs instead. But nonetheless, that's my piece. I shared those two pieces of information with you, and I look forward to learning about what the affordable housing solution is.
Okay. I want to just say, because we do have public on the line, that, and for the committee, I had a computer glitch and the meeting was recording, and then for some reason it stopped recording and I didn't realize it. So the meeting is back recording, so I do apologize. And those for in the public that have joined since 6 o'clock, we did hold public comment at the beginning of the meeting. So I just wanted to make that for the record. So Andy, you're next up.
Sure. I just had one quick comment on the website itself. I really appreciate that. Why is the first question that's being asked in the first frequently asked question, but in the description itself farther down in the middle of that first paragraph is the only spot where I've seen so far that the comp plan is even being mentioned. And I thought that it could use some, that's one of the reasons why we're undertaking this, and it could be potentially added to that answer farther up about why is the code being changed now. So that's just one of my comments.
Cate?
I have a few different comments. I don't know if we're going in any kind of order with things, so I'll just throw them out there. Andy, agree. I like the idea of having the comp plan and just being able at the beginning to tie those things together, and the why we're doing this and what else things should relate back to as we're making decisions or making recommendations. I think one thing to consider with the solar access, I agree that it's something that we should look at, and I think there's resources out there to help us move that forward. Christine, you may know of some that we can look at. But I also, Carl, you had mentioned like a 30-foot tall building or however many tall, like right now our code allows for 32-foot tall houses. And so just thinking about what we allow right now and not to be taking away from that in considering what our solar access might look like moving forward. And also to consider that the same areas that can cause ice in the winter also cause a lot of shade in the summer, and we're getting a lot warmer. The other piece was, with the affordable housing part, my understanding is that we've been kind of waiting on the plan or the assessment from root policy, and that was going to help inform what we would look at, and that they're also coming up with some recommendations. I have looked at parts of those or watched some of the city council presentations on that to get a little bit of information, and I believe that Chris has brought some of that forward in some of our some of the recommendations in the draft language. So I think we have seen some of it. It just, I'll be honest, I'm not up to speed on what the council's proposing. So maybe it aligns, but I think they've had a lot more presentations on what root policies come up with. And then one other thing to consider maybe not necessarily as this group, but as planning and zoning, and Colin, this may be more for you, is that if this is going forward as one package, I think ahead of time may be good to know kind of what's the process for motions, amendments, continuing those public hearings, because it likely is not going to happen in one night. But I think thinking of that ahead of time as we're getting that information, so we can, know when to say, hey, we need to stop and pause and keep talking about this, and just kind of know that ahead of time. Okay.
Colin?
Like I'm going to echo a lot of what Cate just said, because I had a lot of the same thoughts. So we had that discussion of the housing assessment. I think it would be good to have a presentation on that to kind of understand what that, I didn't know that was actually finished yet. So if it is, we should, I don't think I saw it. Maybe I missed the meeting that we got a presentation on it, but I think that would be good if we could get that information, which I think led to some of this additional missing middle kind of thing. And then I had the question that Cate also was asking, is the process for us to send this code to council. You get a little more clarification on what that looks like. As Brenda asked, are we doing just a vote? Do we go through and have these discussions and say, yes, we agree with the changes that have been made? At what point will that happen? How, what are the processes for motions, amendments, continuing public hearings? I think that was all great information that Cate just asked, and I just second that we get that clarified for us, because I love what Brenda's bringing up. I think the passion that is there is why we're all here, to try to make sure that we're doing what's right for the city. And, we need to do our part to do that and make sure that we're following the processes that need to happen. So I'm not sure if Nancy or Brian have maybe clarification, or if we could get that, that would be great.
No, we'll work on some information about, what that adoption process looks like and what the roles of the UDC steering committee and the planning and zoning commission look like. And what I think the big question is, if you want to amend something in the code, how do you make a motion to make that kind of amendment? Does it need a vote? We'll kind of try to spell out those practices with the city attorney and your rules. So we'll try to make sure that's really clear, so that we're making changes that we can understand and the folks can understand, and that'll be legible for the future. So yeah, we'll definitely start working on something like that. I don't think we'll get that to you right away. I think that'll likely come a lot closer to the adoption process. But yeah, we'll get started on it.
And I know we've said this before. I think the initial plan is to have it adopted this fall, and I'm not saying that we should just artificially just keep going with this, but I also want to make sure that it's right. I don't want to just push it through because we said it was going to be this fall. If we need to step back, I'd rather step back and do it exactly right. And I think we're going down that process. I think the information that Chris is providing and the changes that are being made are great. I just don't want to force something in also. So
and neither do we. We're the people that have to administer it for the next 20 years, and we definitely don't want to get it wrong. We want to make sure it's right for all of our community.
Anyone else? Oh, Carl?
Last I looked, we didn't have anything for the next meeting, which would be the 21st, I guess. That would be to go over this the code next thing. It's going to take a lot of time, and I would think that we would plan on at least 2 meetings to go over things before we vote on it. And then the capital improvements that are coming up on April 24th, I would think we'd need 2 or 3 meetings to go over to determine what we're going to do on that. So we've got
just
a lot
clarification.
of things coming up here.
Sorry,
Pardon?
Carl, clarification, the capital improvement projects is for planning commission. Members, not the steering committee. Just for clarification.
Yeah, the planning and zoning.
Correct.
Correct, yeah. So that would be a couple meetings and at least a couple in around April before the 24th. So we've got a lot of things to do, and I would like to have meetings whenever we're supposed to have a meeting scheduled. So we've had what, 2 meetings since December. So that doesn't seem right to me.
No, and that's what I wanted to say. We have no problem having the meetings. Sometimes it becomes a burden on you all to have a meeting just for the sake of having a meeting and us not really having anything to discuss. I've worked with a lot of commissions, and that's how you get folks disinterested sometimes, is having meetings just for the sake without information. But I think we have some information at least for the next one, and we can bring Chris in and have some discussions about, you know, what Brenda requested. And then we can start working on how we're going to approach the final drafts, and start coming up with a plan. What we're really hinging on right now is the discussions at council for them to give us some direction on where to go with these final few items, mainly housing. Once we get some direction there, Chris and his team will go back and start revising the initial drafts that we have currently. Once we get some revised initial drafts, I think that was y'all's request last time, was to start bringing those back and going through them. So we can definitely do that.
Colin?
I just wanted to also clarify on Carl's discussion. Is P&Z discussion that April 24th date is a city council meeting where they're going to provide, or kind of go through their initial steps for the capital improvement plan, but that's something that we do much later in the year, right? We're not trying to do that right now.
That's correct. It's our budget manager and our finance director has scheduled this with council to review the process, and they have invited the planning commission, the water sewer board. There's one other, forgive me, I don't know, that have input on the capital projects. And so it's just to go over the process and how that will happen as we get into the budget.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's provides
Just
some
one-
clarification for those boards and commissions. Carl, did you have another question or comment?
Yeah, thank you for the clarification there. That I wasn't sure on whether we gave them the final capital improvements or not. But one thing that the R1 changes that will be duplex, triplex, fourplex on one lot. What the council meeting was about last night, and there's a lot of people that were against it. So there's a lot, it's pretty complicated, and I don't really know a lot about it. The one thing that does bother me on that is if they do one unit of a fourplex as 80% low income, that really doesn't qualify as affordable housing. 80% of 700,000 is not going to really help the market that much. And like Sheridan has a affordable housing project going. It's where the bonsai nursery was. It's 149 units at 30 to 60% AMI. And that's actually affordable housing. And if the Inglewood could do something like that, it would really help our market here to have affordable housing for people. We do need affordable housing. That's pretty obvious. But how do we get it? That's another thing. There is ways to do it, and Sheridan's found a way to do it, and we need to find something.
Brenda?
Yeah, because this was presented to city council first and it's blown up, community development really should have had something prepared for us to discuss in regards to affordable housing, even if it is a rough draft.
So you all did see the residential development and design standards. There are certain items out of that that have evolved at the council level that you have not seen.
Yeah,
Because
we
they've
didn't
continued
see
to evolve.
the 80%. We didn't see 80% AMI, and we did see, yeah, we did see a discussion. What did we call it? It was introduced last message, just real briefly when we were going over the outline of it. You know, you just kind of breezed over it, but we need a comprehensive discussion about it. And I want to know, when are we going to have that discussion? What did we call it? Density bonus. Yes, you introduced density bonus, but it was a really brief meeting. Remember, we had to get off right away and jump into P&Z. So it was kind of a, here's an overview meeting. So I had a reasonable expectation that we were going to talk about it. And we don't have to right now, but the sooner the better, because it is blowing up in the public space.
Yeah, like I said, we'll get Chris involved. He has a standing meeting on certain Tuesdays, and this happened to fall on that Tuesday that he has another meeting that he can't make it. So we'll reach out to him and see if we can get more information for the 21st. We do have a meeting on the 21st, correct, Nancy?
Give me one second. I believe so, yes, because the
Okay.
council meeting is on the 20th. So
Okay.
ours would be on the 21st, correct. So Colin?
I guess to confirm, will that be UDC only? So we have a little bit of time to talk about it, because as we've mentioned, probably will be a bit of a discussion.
You're the chair of Planning Commission, so
Do we have any other topics to discuss at that meeting that we could potentially not have the P&Z meeting to fully concentrate on the UDC?
Brian, are you aware?
I'm not aware of any items that need to go to Planning and Zoning Commission at that meeting.
Okay. So let's do that on the 21st then, and let's have a good old fashioned meeting and get together and talk this all through. And I think we're gonna end up, Carl, I think there's a little bit of contradiction on solar versus, you know, density for some of those middle housing. And I think that's the challenge that we're all having. I'm guessing those are not all single story homes that are happening in Sheridan. I was trying to look that up as we're going. So I think it's an important thing that we're going to need to discuss and like have that balance in that right location. So appreciate the thoughts on that and the note on that from Sheridan. So I'll look into that a little bit more too.
Cate?
Yeah, one other thing that I think would be helpful as this discussion moves forward is any information, whether it's in the root policy document or their assessment or other resources in how to determine when it makes sense to put specific AMI percentages in a code. I am 100% in agreement that we need affordable housing, and we need affordable housing at 30 to 80%, you know, and market rate housing. The question is the code the appropriate place to put those percentages, or do those need to be in complementary policy packages that go along, you know, with a housing package? Especially because our market conditions could be changing. There could be other things happening, and I just don't know, is that the right place to put, we need to have this specific zone be, you know, 30% AMI, 80% AMI, but you know, unintended consequences. So if there's any information that can come forward, like on where's the right place to put that into policy and to work towards those goals, is it in the land use code or is it in other places? And if other people have information on that, that would be fabulous.
Aaron?
Yeah, just want to support Cate's point in that I'm a huge advocate for affordable housing. It's part of what I do every day. But I don't think the zoning code is the place to codify those initiatives. It's another policy, you know, other places for policy, and it needs to be much more adaptive and reflexive to the market conditions, and we all want it. I hope we all want it. But you know, I don't think the code is it. The one areas where there might need to be some connection is, you know, density or bonuses for density, adjustments to parking for affordable housing, things like that. But as far as defining an approach for affordable housing really needs to be outside of the code in its own thing.
Bernie?
Yeah, I echo those sentiments. And I also would like to add that confusing missing middle and affordable housing is, while there's some overlap there, they're not necessarily the same thing. So I think we need to be looking at use by right, general zoning applications here. And then if there is a crossover reference to any particular affordable housing bonuses and or stipulations, and that would be great. But zoning, I just in most cases, the affordable housing communities are there's so much tied into it, and there's so much tied into it from their ever-changing sources that I think having it rooted in the zoning code could become problematic.
Carl?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The AMI is fluctuating all the time, so you can't really put that into a code. So the problem is that they're using affordable housing to approve the fourplexes on one single lot. The conversation is, if we take a fourplex and put it in this one single housing lot, then we'll use one of those units as affordable housing. And that's combining the two. But I totally agree. The AMI is not something you put in a code. It changes constantly. And like just tens of thousands of dollars between Sheridan and Inglewood on the AMI. So it changes constantly, and the area makes it change too. So I agree. You can't put the AMI in the code. No way.
Okay, Andy?
Yeah, I don't know if there's room left in the scope with Root to have them come talk about any of this, but I know they work with a lot of communities and have a lot of eyes on how other folks are writing these things into code or how else they're delivering this. But I think that could be really helpful to just make sure we're not going down a path that just won't help with additional production of these units.
Michelle?
Yes, I agree. And Bernie, I think you make a very good point that needs a little bit of emphasis. Affordable housing, or well, any type of affordable housing is going to require a pot of money from someplace, be it a government grant or a nonprofit or something like that. And I'm guessing that those units over in Sheridan are the same, because you have to underwrite what the market price would be to be able to rent something for below market. So I agree that I don't think this belongs in code. I think it does belong, and I also think, Bernie, you also, or maybe I take it back. I think Aaron, you made the comment about that affordable housing comes with some sort of carrot. And so I think all of those things, that the affordable housing piece, I believe, also doesn't belong necessarily in code, but it's a special place to be addressed somewhere else that doesn't fall into general zoning restrictions.
Carl?
Just to point out one more thing on the affordable housing, that council has actually admitted they have no idea what they're going to do on the deeds for the buildings that are affordable housing. It was in the news actually last week that this happened in Denver. People are buying affordable housing at the discounted price, and then within a year, they sell it at market price. And that needs to be looked at very closely. We can't have that happening. Or if we do let it happen, I want to be on the list for buying affordable housing. Now, council has admitted they have no idea how they're going to control that. They need to work on that.
Brenda?
Yeah, let me tag on to what Carl said. Is did research on how Denver's handled it, and in every case, not every case, but in the Green Valley Ranch early days, and in a recent attempt to do the same thing, qualify buyers and deed restrict, they ran out of personnel to administer it, and then there was no enforcement of it. It would strain community development resources. You would be tasked with coming up with a comprehensive plan on how to do application intake. And I know that community development's taken some grief for short-term rental applications and enforcement, and that's been hard enough. And so right now, the city council, or at least the proposal that they're discussing tonight, is we would do this density bonus if one of the units was priced at 80% AMI. And it really sounds like that's not something that the city can handle very well. So I just want to leave everybody with a thought about ADUs, because I think people can get, last night in one of the meetings, one of the commenters said that he had suggested that 600 square feet is very small for his mother-in-law, at least, and that he had suggested to the group, and I don't remember this, that ADUs be proportional to the property size. Now that's a density bonus, and that kind of makes sense, because also tied with the proposal is that these large units would only be on 7,200 square foot lots, the larger lots. But we could, in fact, instead maybe do ADUs and allow those to be a little larger. He said his idea was dismissed, but I swear we did talk about this. I just don't remember when.
Bernie?
Yeah, I think we need to be very clear of not equating what I call low density building alternatives, ADUs, tandem homes, duplexes, triplexes, whatever you want to call them, that are meant to be increases in density within the contextual confines of what exists within the neighborhood parameters with affordable housing. And so I really think that we need to make sure that the affordable housing mention is not tied. If we're going to have things, certain types of forms that can be built only based on some sort of affordable housing formula, we're going to fail, because it's going to be a moving target that's going to continue to be a hot button, and it's going to be stricken down. I think what we need to be looking at, and how we need to be presenting some of these alternatives, are alternative ways to get, yes, the density rises, but the general context of what the communities are right now are not changing as dramatically as they would, because what we're looking at is alternative small lot land use, as opposed to what affordable housing is typically equated with, which is larger, typically PUD, lot, a specific cost for the lot, CHAFA funding, etc. So nobody is going to be able to provide affordable housing based on the what we've been discussing with some of these small lot zoning alternatives.
Cate?
Yeah, I think just that's
it's a very good point that, yeah, we can't, adding triplexes, duplexes, ADUs is a great thing to do and can, in my opinion, and can offer additional units, which then at some point can help with affordable housing, but it's likely not going to create a new affordable price point right off the bat. So yeah, I think you have to be very careful to not equate those types of units with affordable housing. I think that's a really important point, and that there may need to be, outside of the land use code, complementary policies that come into place. And like Los Angeles, like Denver Renaissance Collaborative, in offering low-cost loans and to be able to build ADUs to then provide affordable housing. So I think it's some of those things that are going to have to be outside of a code in order for us to get to our goals and still allow things to be built via the code. The other pieces, and again, trying to kind of follow along some of the council discussions and some of ours, is the language around manufactured housing and how that may play a role in ADU development. They're usually in two different areas, but there seems to be a lot more coming on board with the possibility of more manufactured units that could be added to a property, and just making sure we're not missing that opportunity moving forward as well.
Brenda?
I just want to say that's a really good idea, Kate. That I think that that's a really good avenue to explore.
Colin?
I'm going to change the subject slightly. If that's okay with everyone. Are we all good on the for the time being until we, until the 21st? The other thing that I think came up that I was interested in is historic preservation, and talking about needing a supermajority, I think, for designating a neighborhood or an area. I'm not sure what was decided from that, or if that's something that's just going to be incorporated into the future revisions, or anything that came out of that, Brian.
So the Historic Preservation Commission has been working on language for, I believe, a number of years now to get included into our municipal code. And the last time they took it forward to council, they were asked to bring it back with UDC. So we took that as an item, I believe, on the 27th. And I think where it landed was that where it landed was that they wanted it to be revised to 75% to get a district. That means multiple properties. They would need 75% of the property owners to sign off on the request prior to it going to the HPC. The code, the draft that the HPC had created up to that point, I believe, was 50%. But there were certain council members that felt like that was a little bit low. And so I got bumped to 75.
And then there was discussion about having the ability to opt out of it too.
As a property owner that doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to defer to my staff liaison with HPC on all that language. I can definitely have him come in if you guys want to ask questions of our HPC chair on any of that, or we can at least get you the ordinance draft language. It should be on the webpage right now, but we can definitely, if y'all want to go through any of their draft. There are a couple of items that are going on as part of the UDC that are tracking kind of separately. That was one of them. Telecommunication ordinances are being done and revised through the city attorney's office. So that one's kind of tracking separately, but it will be wrapped up ultimately with the UDC.
Right.
And we anticipate that one will go to council for adoption prior to us.
So you're saying those chapters might go separately from what we're.
They will go separately. Well, the HPC will likely go with everything else. Okay. But the telecommunications will likely go separately and get approved. And then what we'll do is we'll take that draft and just absorb it into the formatting of the UDC. And then we'll update any section numbers that need to be updated if they're referencing tabled in our existing code and we need to change the reference numbers in the new code.
And that looks like that's chapter 12 is the only one that's a separate process. So everything else that was supposed to go through our.
Everything else right now is anticipated to go together. And even 12 will go with us. The update will happen earlier. It'll just get tied back in with everything else.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Able to shut down that conversation quickly.
Sorry. Does anybody else have any other questions or items for tonight?
I'm not seeing any hands, Brian.
Okay, I really appreciate this conversation. It gives me a lot of things to go back and work on to bring back to you all. And you know, it was very fruitful conversation. So we may do this more often and ask you what you want to know, and kind of where we're going, instead of just bringing items to you every other week and just showing you what we're working on. So I really do appreciate this. I thank you all for your time. And again, I thank you, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. One thing I will say before we leave, we'll go ahead and send the link out. There's a council meeting on Monday that they will be discussing housing at the study session item, March 13th. So we'll go ahead and when the agenda posts, we'll make sure and send a link out to you all so that you have the ability to watch it. And then again, if you have submitted any comments to me, an emailed form, I know a couple of you have, will you make sure and resend any of those so that I can make sure that I haven't missed anything and they were all consolidated? I had some issues with some comments that I had done from this group and I lost one email. I just can't remember which one it is. So I need to make sure I find it and I can get them all coordinated. I know Bernie and Cate have sent some to me recently. So those are the ones that I'm looking for. But I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything in any of the information you all have provided us.
Real quick, Carl has his hand up.
Yes, Carl.
The council had brought up the fact that we were still Zoom, and they mentioned that they would like to bring us into live. I'm not real excited about that, but it's probably a good idea. I don't know where we would even go. We'd have to be in a community room, I suppose, because there's too many of us for the chamber.
Yeah, I think I was there last night. I believe there's supposed to be a study session discussion about whether to bring boards and commissions back live. But I think by the time we meet again, I'll have more information.
Thank you.
All right, good job.
Again, thank you, everybody, and y'all have a good evening.
Thank you
Thanks all.
very much.
Good night.
Good night.